Alrighty, good morning. I do want to go ahead and be mindful of everyone's time. So thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Shira Zeller, and I'm the graduate coordinator here for graduate admissions at FIU. Also on the call today, we have Nanette Rojas, who is the assistant director for graduate admissions. And essentially, thank you so much for coming to our takeover sessions. Back when, COVID-19 became a thing and we started working remotely, we realized everything needs to be virtual. So we do have our general virtual information sessions. And one feedback that we received from students was, hey, we want to hear from specific programs, which is kind of how we went ahead and we started our takeover sessions. And today we do have creative writing. So I am pleased to have them here. And I'll go ahead and let Nick take the floor.
Well, hello. I'm going to pass the floor over to Les Staniford, the director of our program. But I want to thank those of you who are watching now or who will watch in the future. I am a graduate of the program as well as now working as the program assistant. So I hope I can provide some insight, but you'll get it directly from the horse's mouth. In this case, the founder's mouth. Les Standiford, I think, just joined us. You might be muted there, Les.
How's that? Got me now? Well,
Yep.
pleasure to be here, and we're grateful for the opportunity to get a bit of the word out about the creative writing program, the graduate creative writing program. I came to FIU in 1985, was hired with the charge of bringing an MFA program into being, and we opened our doors in 1991 and have graduated since that time, I think well over 100 MFA students. And the program we were cited shortly after we began in the 1990s as one of the 10 top programs in the country, when they still ranked programs according to the output of the faculty and the graduates of the program, that is to say the publications that they had made. Over the years, rankings came to more and more reflect the size and the number of fellowships that programs offered, and particularly in regards relative to the cost of living of the city in which one attended the program. And as anybody who's watching knows, Miami is not exactly cheap, and that really hurt us in some of these rankings. However, the strength of the faculty and the success of our students has only grown exponentially in all that time. We have, at this point, some 200 books published by our graduates, and they include poetry. Here's Jesse Milner. Here's a collection of short stories by a woman named Laura Valeri that won the Iowa Short Fiction Award competition. Here's a book by someone some of you may have heard about, Dennis Lehane, the author also of Mystic River, and Gone Baby Gone, and Shutter Island, and many more that have been made into films. He's one of our alums. So we've, over our time, have become an illustrious program. I think, Nick, you sent me an announcement saying we were recently ranked number 34. There are 198 creative writing MFA programs in the country, and this site ranked us number 34, the top 17 percentile among those programs, ahead of a lot of places that you certainly have heard of, big time schools. So we've done pretty well down here in South Florida, having been in operation for a very short time. Just a word about what a creative writing program is, in case you're wondering. It's a form of a performing arts program. Every performing arts, every performing art usually you can find an academic program at some institution around the country that offers a degree, a graduate degree in the study and the perfection of the professional perfection of that activity, whatever it might be, whether it's music or acting or fine arts. The graduate degree, the terminal graduate degree for someone who wants to learn how to be a better potter or better tuba player, for instance, is the Master of Fine Arts, the MFA. Takes a little longer than a regular MA, not quite as long as a PhD. A PhD study is geared towards someone who really wants to go out and teach the subject at the graduate level in a college or university somewhere. An MFA does establish you a credential as a teacher, but not as a teacher of the history of the art, but of the practice of the art. And the primary reason to get an MFA in creative writing, however, is to learn how to be a better writer. Just like the primary reason for MFA in painting is to get instruction from very good painters and hopefully become a very good painter yourself. I tell our incoming graduate students, all of whom are writers, they might be poets, they might be short story writers, they might be budding novelists, they might aspire to write memoir or some other form of nonfiction. I tell them that if you've been admitted to this program, you in essence are very similar to an athlete who might have been drafted by a professional football team. You wouldn't be in the room unless you were highly talented as a writer, just as the athlete wouldn't be in the room at the NFL combine unless they were very good as a football player. However, those football players have a tremendous amount to learn if they're ever going to make the team, start on the team, and become someone known across the country for what it is they do. Same is true of writing. You don't get into the program unless you're talented, but what you learn in the program is how to take that talent and apply it at the professional level, how to write professionally, how to take that good stuff you do and turn it into works that can be published, that people will actually, in some cases, pay to read. The MFA also prepares you, as I say, to teach. We have a number of our graduates who've gone on to teach. There are people teaching at Broward College, at Nova Southeastern, and at other places around Georgia State and the University of Texas and many, many more. And then there are people who are actually having careers solely as writers, very fortunate. Folks like Dennis Lehane, who's now out in Hollywood, involved in putting television shows together, working occasionally with the adaptation of his films. That's what we are. That's why people want to be in these programs. Those are some of our credentials. We do what we do well with an outstanding faculty and a record of highly productive students. As to getting into that program, the details are on the website. But basically what you do is submit a sample of your work, a couple of letters of recommendation from former writing teachers who attest to your character and your capabilities as a writer. You have a transcript sent in that shows you've taken at least 9 credits of undergraduate work in formal work in creative writing. And you write a letter of intent, which you send along with your writing samples. All of this these days is done electronically. And then once a year, the creative writing faculty sits down and reads these applications and unanimously votes and unanimously takes part in the screening of every application. It's a competitive process. We admit about 1 in 5 of the people who apply. So your odds are 20% of getting in. We admit 10 to 12 people. We are able to offer funding TA-ships, which include a stipend of $9,500 and the remission of tuition. You're still responsible for your personal fees, such as athletics and health and so on, so forth. It adds up to almost $1,000 a semester, but everything else is paid for, and you draw a salary for your work as a TA, which we don't have time to get into here. But financial aid is available, and it's about a third of the people to a half of the people are on financial aid at any given time. We right now have almost 50 people taking classes, and we have 20 people who are teaching assistants. That'll give you some idea. It's a 3-year program, 48 semester hours it takes to complete it. Again, you can take a look at the breakdown of how the classes are distributed. And even if you're a poet, you take a little fiction writing. If you're a fiction writer, you take at least one poetry class. We like to broaden your horizons while you're here. That's kind of the big overview. But Nick is the person who sort of fields traffic, and when people write in to say, "Wait a minute, I didn't get all that. What am I supposed to do?" Nick is your man, so he's very good at catching what I've left out.
Which is not too much, actually. No, I would just tag on to what Les said, and that is that the benefits of the MFA program are, of course, what you learn in the MFA program, but it's also a pretty tight-knit community, especially if you're going full-time. One of the benefits I'd say is the camaraderie and the benefits of being with other people, other writers, in very close quarters, as well as social situations. And it really, I mean, my experience was, having not been in school for a long time and wondering whether I was too old to come back, enjoy it. I thought it was one of the best experiences of my life, honestly. Life-changing. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that. But we do have folks that aren't able to, or don't want to be in a full-time, graduate school situation, and who take sometimes as little as one class a semester. You have 8 years in which to complete the program, so you can spread that out any way you want. And we do have folks that are
yeah, if you're a TA, if you're a teaching assistant, you tend to chug right through the program and finish. Most TAs finish in 3 years. Many of the people who are not traditional students and TAs have taken as long as 8 years to finish the degree. I also wanted to second one thing you brought up, Nick. I can still remember going to the University of Utah myself, and not really sure what a creative writing program was, except I knew I wanted to write, get better at it, and have writing as a career in some fashion. And when I found out that I was going to be able to spend a couple of years living, breathing, and talking, writing with a whole bunch of other people who felt the same way, I thought I was in paradise. I feel the same way, and now I still spend all my time doing that. A large part of my life is devoted to that very thing, hanging out with other people who believe that this is the most important thing in the world. There's nothing like it.
Right. I thought I would share a visual here. This is, where did it go? Hold on a second. I'm trying to show them our wall of fame, Les, the wall in my office that has all of the covers of publications, recent publications by, there it is. Can you guys see that?
I don't.
Here we go.
Oh, wow. There it is.
There it is. So
that's just a few of those book covers I was talking about.
That's right. I was telling Nanette and Shira that this is something that started by my predecessor, who started copying the covers of books that had been published by our alumni and putting them on the wall. And I've continued that, but this is a tiny fraction actually of what has been published. I don't think it's even complete, but this is give you an idea. This goes back maybe a couple of years. So
Amazing.
that just gives you a sense of what we've done, or what our alumni have done, really. But seeing that when students pass my office and stop and look in, I know it's an inspiration. I see the look in their eye.
Great. That's great. Well, it's important too, because it's not like we're one of these STEM programs where you punch your ticket with a graduate degree and it virtually guarantees you a job for some large corporation doing research on such and so. That's not how it works in the performing arts in any genre, painting or acting or music. The truth is, many are called and few are chosen. But on the other hand, what you come to understand is there are many ways that you can get this degree and continue on, even if you without writing the great American novel and being on the cover of Time magazine. There are ways to carry on and write on the side and still be doing work that has something to do with the training that you received in your MFA program. A number of people do public relations work, writing for companies, because the MFA really makes you an expert in written communication. And in this day and age, that's a valuable commodity. Fewer and fewer people come out of college with the ability to write with clarity and conviction and convey complex ideas in a form that a wide audience can comprehend. And that makes someone with an MFA a valuable person within an organization if you're interested in that sort of thing. Beyond, I'm talking about jobs of the sort beyond outside of teaching now. But we have a number of graduates who have gone on and who work as and some people who don't want to work in the corporate atmosphere get jobs as freelance writers and take on individual projects in editing and the like for companies, and then save up some money and then go back and work on that novel for a few months before going back into that kind of work. That's just the reality. It always has been the reality for folks in the performing arts. In the United States, there's no such a thing as socialized work in the theater or painting or the like. Hasn't been since the Depression and the Works Progress administration back in the 1930s.
We've also had graduates who have gone on to arts administration. We were talking about the Miami Book Fair before we started, and the director of all the programming at the Miami Book Fair is Lizette Mendez, who was a graduate of the FIU MFA program. So that's, Lizette is great at logistics. She's a very good writer too, but she's wonderful at logistics, and she puts together that entire program. So that's another place where some of our graduates could land.
Oh yeah, and she took what she learned about writing instruction and helped the college, Dade College, develop a Center for the Literary Arts, where they do a lot of community-oriented instruction, short course instruction that we're not set up to do, and they do a terrific job of it. And Lisette's one of our. I'm very proud of what she's taken from us and brought to the community. And then there's Scott Cunningham, who's the director of the Miami Poetry Project, which has a week-long celebration of poetry with a lot of public festivals and so forth, but now has evolved into a year-round organization that promotes the value of poetry in the schools and in the community. And that's his full-time position.
The deadline, if anyone is out there or sees this that is interested, the deadline to apply for the admission for next fall is coming up. It's January 12th. And all the components of what would need to be in the application are on our website. As is our, you can see the faculty there, their bios, all of which are pretty impressive.
Oh, and here's something. Yeah, you want to check out. We still have those magic moments, magic minutes up, the short readings by FIU faculty. It's a great way to get to know who we are, just listening to a minute or two of a faculty person reading from his or her work.
Yeah, over the summer, Les came up with the idea of having each faculty member record a minute of their own work, and we posted them to Facebook. It was really, we reached a lot of people that way, and they're archived there. So if you go to our FIU MFA page on Facebook, they're all there, and they're, you know, some are poetry, some are prose, some are flash fiction, but you also get a sense of the instructor too, you know, a sense of the professor. It was a great idea. It turned out really well.
I don't know. Have we left anything out, Nick?
I don't know. I know some folks might have questions that will probably direct
Yeah, I
us.
was going to ask a couple of questions if you don't mind.
Not at all. Please, let's have them.
Sure. Well, one was more practical in the sense of, I know that the program requires that students take or have taken the nine credits in undergraduate creative writing classes. So since the deadline is in January and they would be applying for fall, would it be okay if maybe they haven't done that yet, but are planning to do so at some point before the fall semester begins, and they would still be considered for that admission cycle?
Oh, Nanette, that's a good question. They could, and they could say, "Don't worry, we'll have the 9 hours by the time of enrollment." But statistics tell us that in the 30 years, can it be that long? Nearly 30 years that we've been in operation, no one who hasn't taken at least a couple of courses already at the time that they decide I'm going to apply. Turns out that no one has ever, the primary criterion really for admission is the strength of the writing sample relative to all the other writing samples. In other words, you've got to show that you've got some capabilities here. It just turns out that no one with less than at least a couple of courses under their belt already has ever submitted a writing sample that the faculty have chosen. That's just statistics. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't a self-taught genius out there who says, hey, no, I haven't taken any classes, but I've been self-taught in writing, and listen, send that story in. And it's possible. We're still waiting to see the first one of those people, but there's nothing to say that it couldn't happen. Am I being clear?
Oh yes, very clear. I was also, before we started formally with the presentation, we were talking about different outlets that the students have once they're in the program. For instance, that the Gulfstream magazine is still available.
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Yeah. We still produce student edit, with faculty oversight, a magazine. It's largely online. Once in a great while, we published a hard copy version of Gulfstream magazine, but it's a magazine which features nonfiction, fiction, and poetry that's submitted from around all around the country. And it's a great way for students to come to understand what professional standards are, because they sit in an office and read through a great stack of poems or short stories and realize there's only room for the very, very best, and come to understand how very difficult decisions get made, and what constitutes something that merits publishing, and what could be well written, but just hasn't risen to the very top. So that's a very important ancillary activity. And the other one is our monthly Writers on the Bay series, where we present outside visiting writers to read and talk with, meet and talk with students, folks who don't teach here, who come in, however, who published widely, and who come in and share their work and are open to discussing their work with students. We have students who help with put that program on and help administer it, and that gives valuable insight and experience into the arts administration role that Nick was talking about. The number of our students have found work in after their time with us in the program.
I mean, I have one more question, but I would also like to ask Jose if he has any questions specifically that maybe we can have addressed during this session.
Oh, no, I don't have any questions at the moment. But you guys have been covering a lot of the ground already so far. I'm just looking into, because I graduate at the end of this upcoming 2021 with both of my degrees. So I'm just really taking as much information as I can, putting everything together.
Well, I was going to say, for students who are considering applying, what would be some tips or suggestions that you have as they prepare their writing samples, in this case, because they're treated so importantly in the evaluation process?
What do you think, Nick, as someone who's gone through this process?
Well, I get several requests from people who are considering applying or know they're going to apply, and they ask me the same thing. And I always tell them the writing sample, and the writing sample should be the best thing you've ever written. I mean, that's all I can really tell them. It should be as professional, and you should put as much care into it and feel as good about it as anything you've ever written. And in your, letter of intent, sort of the cover letter that accompanies that, be sincere and be honest. And, that letter is a representation of your writing ability too.
Sure.
So, don't submit a wonderful writing sample and, a kind of contrived or flat letter of intent. Both those things together, I guess, Les, right, are the two most important.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. Letters of recommendation are important. The GRE isn't required this year, but normally when somebody wants a TA-ship, we take a look at GPA and GRE, because if you're going to be teaching other people, that becomes particularly important. Your academic credentials, that's not so important if you're to whether or not the question whether or not you can write effective fiction necessarily. But one thing I wanted to mention too is, and this is the value of having taken classwork in preparing a application. You can go to your former instructor or your current instructor and say, I'm thinking about applying to an MFA program at FIU or wherever. What do you think is the best piece? What do you think of mine that you've read might make an impression on someone who doesn't know me? And you can get a lot of valuable help from your mentors. I always get that when I'm teaching the undergraduate classes, I always get that question from folks who are going to come on and apply. And certainly you shouldn't, it's not cheating, in other words, to go ask your teacher, what do you think I ought to submit?
And in fact, you mentioned something that I just thought of is that, you know, a lot of the faculty, all the faculty also teach undergraduate courses. And so that's a great opportunity if you're able to not just get what you can out of the content of the course, but to meet the faculty. And
I'll be teaching the first course in fiction writing in the spring.
There you go. We've even had people who, you know, you can't audit graduate level creative writing courses, but we have had people audit some of the undergraduate courses, and with an eye towards, you know, applying to the MFA. And I also tell people, if they're local, if it's possible, you know, come to the Writers on the Bay session. I hope at some point we'll be back to, you know, in-person events. Come to those. You'll meet the students, but you'll also be able to introduce yourself to the faculty, and that can't hurt. You know, attaching a face to a name of somebody that has come up to you and you know, maybe had a conversation. All of that is, you know, not part of the formal application, but like in any endeavor, you know, there are other things that you can do to help yourself.
No, thank you. I think those are really good tips for students who are considering this as an option. Shira, I'm not sure if you had any additional questions.
No, you all covered so much.
It's also, remember, in my case, I was considering the program, and I reached out to a faculty member, Lynn Barrett, and asked her if it was okay if she would meet with me. And she was very generous. I sat down with her for probably an hour, and we talked about whether or not it was a good idea for me and some of the things that we've been going over here. But I know that, you know, all the faculty maintain office hours, and you can reach out to them.
Hopefully we'll have such a thing in the future someday.
Right.
Office hours, oh my God.